Well, it was finally here, my much anticipated first canoe trip of 2024. It was near the end of May, and I was heading up to Kiosk Lake, one of the most northern lakes in Algonquin Park. I would be traveling a little over 70 kilometers, and it was an area I had not been to before, so I was pretty excited. Over the winter, I had acquired all the gear I was going to need for my solo trips, with the exception of a canoe, so I had booked a rental for this trip. I had decided to head up to the park a day early and do some test paddling at the Dwight Swift Canoe store. I ended up choosing the canoe I kind of knew I wanted all along, the Prospector 14. And as luck would have it, they had the model with the features I was looking for in stock. So I purchased my canoe, canceled the rental, and was on my way to Kiosk. It was about 5:30 p.m. when I reached Kiosk and had my new canoe in the water, searching for my first campsite. Let's look at that new canoe. Woo! Paddle's fantastic. Okay, so we got the fire pit area, and then over here we've got tent site. It's a bit sloped. That way if it rains, it should drain all right. The next morning started a little overcast, but it was supposed to clear up and be a mostly sunny day. I made breakfast and had my coffee, but I was pretty excited to get that new canoe in the water. Once on the water, I had decided to take a slight excursion to Wolf Bay. It was in the opposite direction of where I'd be heading, but at the end of the bay, there was an area outside of the park boundaries, and I could legally try and get some footage with my new drone. After that, I headed to the southwestmost point of the lake, where I would find my first portage. The sun had come out and there was a slight breeze, which was keeping the flies at bay. It was a beautiful paddle. My first portage started at the end of a picturesque little waterfall. The portage itself was also quite scenic and relatively easy at 290 meters and fairly level. From there, I began my paddle up the Amable de Fond River. It was a relatively short paddle of about 500 meters to my next portage, a 320-meter hike with a little steeper incline at the beginning. Then back on the river for more scenic paddling. After a very beautiful paddle up the river, I came to my third and final portage of the day, a much longer 1,330-meter hike. Overall, relatively straightforward, though there was a section about halfway through that was quite steep for about 100 meters. Now finished the portage and exhausted, I was on Manitou Lake, where I would be spending the night. It was time to start looking for a campsite. I eventually found a suitable site. I set up camp and got dinner made and cleaned up just before the rain started. It had rained pretty hard all night, but by morning it was down to a drizzle. I put the coffee on and started breakfast. After breakfast, I packed up camp and started my trek to Biggar Lake. It was raining slightly and there was a bit of a wind, but it was keeping the bugs at bay. At the south end of Manitou, the wind began to pick up a bit, but on the bright side, the flies were all but gone. At the end of Manitou, I made my way to Angler's Portage, which began at the base of the scenic rapids. And at the end of the portage was a beautiful little falls called Lost Light Falls. Okay, here I am at Lost Light Falls. Pretty crazy. And the rain stopped. Now on T Lake, I began the paddle to Mangotasi Lake. The wind had picked up a bit, but once again, I welcomed the reprieve from the bugs. Okay, so I'm just on the edge of T Lake now, heading into Mangotasi Lake. I was then at my next portage, a 310-meter hike to Hornbeam Lake. Okay, last leg with the canoe. Now on Hornbeam Lake, I had a very short paddle to Twin Falls, and then an even shorter portage at just 40 meters to bypass the falls. That's pretty cool. See why it's called Twin Falls? This is a short one, just bypassing this waterfall. It started to rain again, so it looks like I'm gonna have to get the raincoat back out. The rain had started up again, but I had just a short paddle to my last portage, a relatively easy 120 meters to Biggar Lake. Well, that looks like my portage ahead. So that was a short paddle. Last leg of the last portage of the day. And my back says thank you very much. This is a short one. It's just like 110 meters, I think. Once on Biggar Lake, the sky showed signs of clearing up. It was time to look for a campsite. I eventually found a site I felt would be suitable. That was a long day. Okay, this is the view from my campsite. This is campsite number 3. I'm on Biggar Lake. After having a quick look around, I chose a tent site relatively close to the fire pit as it was the most level and knowing the wood would be too wet for a fire. Well, it took a few days, but we finally get to see what sunshine looks like in Algonquin in the morning. It was a chilly one last night, but it is nice to see the sunshine. One nice thing about having a chilly night and chilly morning is it seems to take the bugs a little longer to wake up. I could do with a few minutes of bug-free. I then started my morning routine by grabbing the food bags, making breakfast, and packing up camp. Okay, all packed up and ready to head out. On my way, I think today I end up on 3 Mile Lake is where I'll be camping tonight. Back in the canoe, I started my paddle across Biggar Lake. Man, that sun is a beautiful sight. I don't know if it's because it got so chilly last night, but so far I have not seen a fly yet. Okay, well, I'd have to say that was one of the nicest paddles of the trip so far. About 3.7 kilometers of nice, calm water, beautiful scenery, bit of a breeze, and I did not see one bug that whole time. I'm about to start my first portage, so I'm guessing that's probably about to come to an end, but we'll see. Well, I just saw my first moose sighting, and no matter how many times I see a moose, I always find that exciting. It's right at the other end of this portage. Hopefully I'll get a chance to take a picture of him when I get back there, but he definitely heard me before I saw him. So we'll see. After finishing my 530-meter portage, I was on Sinclair Lake, and it had a very short paddle to my next portage, a much longer one at 1,040 meters. This would take me to Kawa Lake. Okay, so this is Kawa Lake, and I've got a very short paddle across it. You can see the portage sign across there, and then I go to Upper Kawa Lake, and then another long portage will take me to 3 Mile Lake, which is where I'll be camping tonight. So a lot of portaging today, but couldn't ask for a better day to be doing it in. It is beautiful. The wind's coming out of the north, so it's nice and cool, but nice and sunny. Okay, I'm gonna have a bit of a snack before I head off, and then I'm on my way. While snacking, a pair of loons decided to join me on Kawa Lake. A short paddle across Kawa Lake would take me to my next portage, 320 meters to Upper Kawa Lake. Once on Upper Kawa, I had another short paddle to my last portage of the day, a grueling 1,220 meters. I then began the long hike to 3 Mile Lake, and it was long. About halfway through, there was a canoe rest, but I decided to power on through. Now on 3 Mile Lake, I began the search for a campsite. There it is. Home for this evening. Okay, so this is my campsite on 3 Mile Lake. That's 3 Mile Lake. This is actually one of the nicest campsites I've had on this trip. A nice fire pit. They even have a few benches. But what I really like is there's an ideal spot for a tent. Nice, looks nice and flat. Should be a good night's sleep tonight. That's pretty sweet. So yeah, I like it. So this is home for tonight. Okay, got a coffee going. Got the tent set up. I'm just gonna chill, relax, drink my coffee, and look at this beautiful view. Nice to finally have some wood dry enough to burn. At least I can have a campfire tonight. What a beautiful night it's gonna be. another cool one last night. You can see your breath when you woke up this morning. But it's created a beautiful mist over the lake. Time for coffee. After breakfast, I packed up camp and was back on the water. Leaving my campsite on 3 Mile Lake, the paddle was perfect. The sun was shining, it was calm, and the bugs had not made an appearance yet. Mornings like this make all the rain, heavy winds, and whatever else you have to deal with on a trip more than worthwhile. Wind's picking up a little bit. It's still a gorgeous paddle. Well, unfortunately, this beautiful paddle is about to come to an end because I do see the portage sign ahead. So it turns out that paddle was roughly 1 kilometer. Okay, so we're on our first portage of the day. This is taking me from 3 Mile Lake to North Sylvia Lake. It's about, I think it's about 540 meters. It's not too bad. A little bit uphill in the beginning, but then it kind of levels off. Overall, not too bad. Saw some moose tracks and moose droppings on the trail, but no sign of moose. Well, those are signs of moose, but no actual moose sighting. Now with Portage 1 complete, I was on North Sylvia Lake, and the beautiful paddle continued. Once across Sylvia Lake, I started my second portage of the day, a 680-meter hike to Boggy Lake. At the end of the portage, I met another paddler, my first of the trip. A nice young man who was basically doing the same loop as me, but in reverse. Now on Boggy Lake, I had a very short paddle to what would be my longest portage of the trip, at 1,450 meters. Okay, starting the second leg of this 1,440 meter portage. Not gonna lie, I'm already pretty tired. Okay, I'm starting to go downhill and I think I see blue ahead. So I think that's light at the end of the tunnel. Happy to see that lake. Now, on to Hinda Lake, I continued my paddle to Rat Trap Lake. Got a couple of loons ahead. Once on Rat Trap, I made my way to my last portage of the day, a 400-meter hike to Maple Lake, where I would be spending the night. Okay, see the blue of the lake. You're at the end of the portage. Okay, now on Maple, the search for a campsite begins. Maple Lake has a few campsites on islands, and I had decided to try one of these. Well, the flies are back. So we are facing west, so we should get a nice sunset again. There's the fire pit. As you can see, the bugs are back. Just a quick look from my campsite. It's kind of cool. I'm on a bit of a rocky ledge. Another beautiful sunrise with the mist on the lake, but it's blue skies. Looks like it's going to be a beautiful day. And this is the west side of the lake. After breakfast, I was back on the water and ready to start my last full day in the park. The bugs are out. Yeah, honestly, if it weren't for these bugs, this would be pretty much perfect. sounds of rushing water up ahead. I had arrived at my first portage of the day, and the shore was very rocky. But the portage itself was short at 100 meters and pretty easy. Okay, I'm gonna start my paddle up Maple Creek. One last look at the little rapids there, and we're on our way. Okay, so this is still Maple Creek. That's going to be what we're portaging past. And according to Jeff's maps, it's a heck of a portage. It turned out that the portage I was dreading so much wasn't all that bad. I failed to notice that the map showed the steep hill was going downhill for me. And though it was still a little tricky and the walk back up it to get the canoe did win me, it was definitely manageable. And there was lots of beautiful scenery along the way. Continue so for quite some time. Here we are. Then the paddle down Maple Creek continued. Yeah, for the first time ever, well, in a long time, I ran into rangers on my travels. And they're doing portage maintenance, which is kind of cool. And once again, I'm seeing light at the end of the tunnel. Then back in the canoe for the last stretch of Maple Creek. Yellow sign ahead, so I know this beautiful creek paddle is coming to an end. But it sure was pretty. Okay, just finished the short portage. That was like 100 meters. I didn't realize the battery was on its last leg. So I just swapped out batteries and I'm about to carry on down Maple Creek. Back on Maple Creek. The shore of that portage was a lot muddier than it looked. So when I stepped in it, I went almost knee deep. It sounds like rapids and I'm seeing yellow signs, so I think this is the end of my paddle. Okay, we got a short 190 back to Maple Creek. Here's the rapids we're going around. I then had my last portage of the day and the trip, 890 meters, which would take me back to Kiosk Lake. Wind's picked up quite a bit and it's going to be a bit of a choppy paddle, but that should keep the bugs off. Okay, finished my last portage. I'm on Kiosk. Good news, the wind has really picked up, so there's no bugs right now. Bad news, the wind has really picked up, so it's going to make paddling a bit challenging. But I think I'll take that over the bugs. Now back on Kiosk, I started to see other campers. Around the bend, and now I'm heading east on Kiosk. A little ways up, there should be a campsite. Eventually, I found a site that was available and faced north, so I was hoping I would catch both sunset and sunrise. Okay, so I'm at my campsite, my last campsite. I do have the tent set up, canoe up high. It's a bit of a cliff down below. Water's boiled for dinner, so I am going to get going. I made supper and ate on the rocks as my site was a little too sheltered from the wind, and the mosquitoes and flies were crazy. Well, my last morning in Algonquin. Looks like it's going to be a beautiful sunrise. It's a cool one again this morning. Time to get the coffee started. Okay, heading out on my last paddle back home. And it's a short one. I just got across Kiosk. What a beautiful morning. Mornings like this make it tough to leave. And back to civilization. Okay, well, it's 8:20.